Hi guys, hope everyone's all really well. So this is one of 4 of the boards I recently shaped. I'm kind of done it my own little Go Surf electric acid surfboard test. All these boards are designed by me, hand shaped by me, and glassed by me, sanded by me, and they're all done here in my backyard and just in a small garage to do the glassing. So hope it interests you guys. The channel's really not about me and my shapes, although it's become, I've been doing a lot about my shapes recently, so I hope everyone's still enjoying some of that. I mean, the channel is really about helping you guys and content to help your board selection and all the rest of it. So I'm still trying to put bits of that together for you. Just did a bit of a review on board shapes. I'll try and do more of that kind of stuff if that's what you guys want to see. And hopefully everyone's finding my own shapes interesting. I don't really want to be taking this as an opportunity to plug or blow my own trumpet or anything, because it's not like I'm not selling these boards. I don't make anything off it. There's no, like, it's really just to show people and hope people are interested. But for this set of 4, I want to make it quite a bit about these styles of boards and the fin selections on these styles of boards, how these styles of boards ride, and what fins you might choose and how the concaves work for these styles of boards. And I'm going to try and suggest a style of board that you might like to try if you like the look of these styles of boards, because as I say, it's not all about me, it's really about what you guys are looking for and what tickles your fancy to surf and getting you into something new that's keeping you surfing fresh and making things exciting for you. So yeah, it's a bit about my shapes, and I hope everyone enjoys following my journey, because I really enjoyed doing it. And I'll try and make these 4 a little bit relative as well to these boards in general, because I know you guys can't just walk out and buy something that I've hand shaped in my backyard in a surf shop locally, but it will give you an idea of some similar types of boards. And if if there's something that turns you on about what one of these types of boards that might inspire you to go and grab something, I'll try and suggest some alternatives, or flick me a message and I can tell you a few models that I think might be similar and give you that same feeling if it's something you're looking for. So yeah, just a bit of a ramble, but yeah, I'm going to try my best to make it relevant to everyone. I know my boards and my shapes are very specific, so I really appreciate everyone following, and super pleased with everyone. Everyone's really given me some good encouragement, and I've had some great comments and feedback about the boards and how they look, so I really appreciate that. It's quite a lot of work, and there's no money or thanks in it really, so I really appreciate that you guys are enjoying it, and I hope you get something out of everything I put together. Yeah, game on. So this is number 1 of 4. This is the fish that I did myself. It's kind of a bit of a blend of the retro but quite modern and all round. So this one is 6/0, 21 7/8 and 2 7/8. So as you can see, the rock is fairly flat, the outline's fairly wide. It's a fairly traditional swallow in terms of the depth of the swallow, and it's just a real nice all-round shape. So these kind of boards, they're really good to ride. They'll ride well in sloppy conditions. They will ride well when it gets a bit bigger if you've got the right fins in them. They're really fun to ride. You get a lot of speed, you get a lot of drive, and you can link. The turns are a little bit longer, but you can link the turns really nicely and carry speed through really smooth, long flowing turns, and they'll surf really well out on the wall of the wave. So if you're a slower surfer, or you just like doing big carves, and you've got a wave knee and it's like a point break or a slow wave, these kind of boards are a real lot of fun. A lot of people do ride them in decent surf as well. I've ridden a few fish that will do a bit of everything, and then obviously the good guys. I mean, everyone says oh, fish, you can ride fish in big waves as well. You can, but that's probably realistically more for the realms of the Asher Paceys and Josh Kerrs and the lost generation that are, they're riding low volume boards and they're incredibly good surfers. So us normal guys can ride these kind of boards and everything, but when I make them, and the ones that I would choose, I would tend to gear them more towards the smaller end of the wave range, just for myself personally. I set them up with a wide tail deliberately. So you've got all this lift and drive and paddle power in the smaller waves. I would ride this it's pretty slow here, so I don't start riding short boards till it's like kind of almost chest high at least, and then I'll probably be comfortable in like head and a bit. So like, I don't know, in New Zealand we call that and I guess Aussie as well, we'd call that a sort of 2 to maybe the 2 to 3 to 3 or 4 foot wave range. So like the maximum I'd ride this fish in would probably be like the height of this ceiling, which is kind of me and half of me stood on myself again. So yeah, like head and a bit. Yeah, this one, similar boards would be, I actually had the Super Brand Serial Keeler, and that was a cracking board. I don't always get on with specific twin fins really well. They tend to suit, they sort of suit advanced surfers a little bit more, but they're a lot of fun. They suit everyone, but it just depends on your style. But the Serial Keeler was one of the few twin fins that I've ridden as a keel fin that were like very, very intuitive, lots of grip. The keel fins were set quite far back, so you had a lot of hold. Some of the keel fins I've ridden before, you get like 3/4 of your turn done and it feels really nice, and then it's just not predictable about where it lets go, which I think is just, you know, some of that's just putting the time in and getting used to it. But yeah, after having the Serial Keeler, and I think there's a Chile model that's fairly similar. And then at the other year, and then there's this actually reminds me of my old Channel Islands fish skip. So if you wanted a fish, the fish skip was basically the biscuit, but with a fish tail rather than a round tail, which is kind of like the opposite of the neck beard versus the fish beard. So yeah, if you wanted like a grovelly type board and a similar bit fat tail and a flat rocker, the fish skip's a really good board as well. If you went to the more performance end, you'd be talking about like a JS Black Baron or something like that. And then, you know, some of these twins go from being like a fishy, traditional, real fish looking shape to someone will be like a 2+1 twin, and then they've got a step in the tail and they're a bit more refined, a bit like the album boards that Asher Pacey rides, something like that. So that'll give you an idea. And this is the more grovelly end. I think Surfboard Agency have just come out with a range of coloured boards that are quite reasonably priced. They're made overseas, so the quality's it's alright, but they're not like the high end ones. But yeah, they do a range that they just brought out that's coloured that would be similar models to this. And there's also like the Aloha keel fin. I've had one of those. That's a really low rocket board. So if you want that speed and that big traditional tail, there's a few options that you could copy. So again, fairly flat rocker. It's quite thick up in the nose. It left quite a lot of meat in the tail. It's quite well foiled. Spent a heck of a lot of time. I'll show you the concaves and everything after, and give you a really good look around the rails and everything else. But I spent a heck of a lot of time getting the sharp edges at the tail really nice. So they've come out really well. And so I'll show you the concaves properly later. But this is you probably even be able to see it in the light. This is basically it's a V double. I'd call it a V double basically. So it's from about here all the way back on the board. It's V all the way through with a double running all the way through it. So that basically means that this stringer sits further into the water than the rail line. So when I come around and show you the concaves later, you'll see I'll put a straight edge on it, and the straight edge will basically rock from side to side, and that gives the board speed, and it basically gives it speed and flatness through the middle of the board at the stringer, and then allows you to flick the rails up a little bit more aggressively. So you basically end up with a more aggressive rail rocker than stringer rocker, which is a good way of achieving that. And then a double concave all the way through it keeps the speed and lift and grip that you don't get with a straight V. Yeah, what else to say? I deliberately designed this as a specific quad set because, like I say, twinnies. I like twinnies and I like a twin keel fin. I've just made one in this batch as well, so I'll be able to show you that. But I really wanted like a do-it-all, so a really all-roundy fish that I could ride in kind of 2 to 4 foot waves. And it's a quad, so I'm used to quads and I like quads. So it's carvy, long turn, speed, drive, hold. Having the slightly bigger fins will allow you to ride it in a bigger wave than you would if you were riding it with like a standard fin setup. And I ride this one's Futures, so I ride the Futures controllers in that, which I'll show you again afterwards. And with Futures, because the cant's built into the box, so fins, if you look on some of my reviews you'll see this, but basically fins have what we call toe, and toe is the angle this way. So the more toe you have, the quicker the board's going to turn, but it also creates drag. So keel fins and twin fins are generally designed with less toe to create less drag, and then so that's toe, and then cant is also the angle that they have this way, which is kind of like cars have exactly the same thing going on with the wheels in both directions. So the cant is the way the fins are splayed this way. Now FCS, the cant is built into the box and the fin is straight when you get it, and Futures, the cant is built into the fin. So for this fin box on the same angle, however you glass that fin box in, the fin's cant is in the fin, which it suits the fin's design, which is actually really good. So if you want to ride this as a quad, the quad fins will have their own built-in cant, and if you were on a ride it as a keel fin, well, the keel fin itself is already more upright, and with Futures as well, the extra base of the bigger fin is all going backwards. So what I've noticed on a few of my boards is, actually didn't believe it myself at first when I'd heard a few people and shapers saying that they can do it, but the fin location here, when you change this from like a quad to a keel, the keel actually is going to go back and end up quite close to where it would be optimally. If I was doing a keel fin myself, and I know it's going to be a keel fin, this fin box would be further back, even further back. So yeah, that's just one of the things I started noticing when I was shaping about Futures, and I was like, oh, maybe for my smaller wave boards where I know I want to change between maybe a keel and a quad, or a 2+1 and a keel, it's quite good to have the Futures options, because there's loads of options. There's loads of options with Captain Fin, Naked Viking, and you get the full base, you get the full length of base connected to the board, and there's lots of options of aftermarket fins, and the cant changes to suit the style of fin you're riding, as opposed to it being locked into the board and you can't change it. So it's just a little thing I noticed. So I've kind of trialed this batch of 4 boards. I've gone back to Futures, and I want to try a few fins and compare some of the rides. I ride a lot of FCS2 and my other boards. I like both systems. So my more performance or hybrid boards are all FCS2, but I just wanted to trial some, so I've got a range of these 4 boards are all Futures, and they all do kind of different jobs. So you can probably see some of the double and V running through it, almost through the camera. My rails are still quite nice and low and round. I put a lot of, so what they call this underside rail is called the tuck. So I always try and keep quite a lot of tuck in there, because that means this edge doesn't catch. So for average surface and average waves, a nice forgiving board with a good bit of tuck is good. And my rail apex, I do the same rail band lines. The first initial rail band is the same on all of my boards. I just tweak it a little bit when I'm shaping. So even if this board's like nearly 3 inches thick like this is, I still want to come down to the same look and profile of the rail in this section. So that's what I'm trying to achieve, and most of my boards still come out with a nice low rail, and you know, keep it nice and sharp in those back wing edges in the tail. And so you'll probably see the V and double running through there, but I'll come around and talk through the concaves and the fins that I would choose. But yeah, wide shape, lots of planing area, lots of speed generated by the board. The fishtail and these wide pins obviously gives a nice, it keeps the tail a tight curve. Keeps the tail being a long and not too aggressive curve. So it's all straight line speed. If this tail curved in a lot harder, it would turn better, but it wouldn't go as fast. So you want to keep that sort of fairly parallel outline in a fish, but then round it off so it's a bit forgiving. Rocker and foil, just really good all round. Nice flat rocker, enough to keep you out of trouble. I make most of these hybrids that I make out of a Bennett fish blank, so I don't have to adjust the rocker too much because I want that low rocker. The only thing I have to change is the foil and the outline shape when I'm making it. And then say fin setup, Futures fins, specific as a quad, and that's the specific spot that I would put quads in normally. Yeah, so that's the overview of the board. I will come around and give you a specific look at the concaves, and I'm going to talk about the sort of fins you can put in these kinds of boards and how they behave and how they work. So fin selection for this type of board, I'm generally looking for like a large split keel set, as they call them. So it's basically like so that's a normal keel fin. So it's basically like taken this and split it into two pieces, so it gives you some of that keel fin feel and drive and speed, but with a little bit more hold because you've got a back fin and a front fin. Just makes it a bit more, just a bit smoother. Turns are longer, but the turns are smoother and more predictable, and you get more hold and drive for the fins that you've got in, basically. So these are the controllers, and in FCS2 the split keel's virtually the same fin, and there's also a lost one in Futures which is the same fin, and the Rainbow heater quad is very similar as well. There's a few people doing these same kinds of things. I think Naked Viking are now doing a real similar one as well. I think the Marlin's a little bit like this one. So yeah, I usually use these kind of split keels. So there's the controller ones, they would be my go-to, and then the FCS2 split keel, they would be my go-to in FCS. And then also quite enjoy the Rob Machados. They're the ones that were designed for the seaside. They're quite good in that type of board as well. And I've always quite enjoyed these Captain Finn McCullum Especials. They're a large Especial quad. So that's there. They do them in this. This is a flexible core, but they do them in a solid glass as well. So these are maximum drive, hold, and just really predictable, easy to surf, but you're not going to get super whippy turns. These ones are a little bit different. They're almost a bit more like a twin with a little trailer keel, because the back one's not got depth to it, but it's got length to it. You sort of get the speed, but not the same amount of hold, or not the same predictable amount of hold. So it's almost like halfway between a controller and an actual twin. It's like a twin. It's more like a twin with two stabilizers. So, but they're really good set. Those they get good drive, good hold. The only thing I found in the seaside is they can be a bit more unpredictable than these. I just completely depend on these. And then if I want something slightly more high performance, or I want to change the aspect ratio of where the area sits between the front fin and the back fin, I quite often use these, and they just you get a lot of hold because they've got depth, but they're not too difficult to turn because they're not quite as much, you're not pushing against quite as much base and surface area. And then, as I said, also, it's not optimal, but I could run a keel fin in this board as well. So what I'll show you, what you'll see with Futures is, again, because this is the front of the fin box, and because they go in that way and down, basically any extra on the fin will all go backwards. So if you look at something like this controller compared with I've got an old set of Rasta keels here, which are really good fins. You can see that most of this extra area is actually behind the fin, which actually sets this up so that fin is automatically already more towards the way it would be if it was a keel fin. FCS ones do a little bit of the same, to be fair. They have a little bit more on the back, but they tend to be, a lot of the normal fins are set up, the back of the fin all lands on the shaper's dot, which is kind of the way it's supposed to be, but these ones, it's kind of handy in these because the shaper's dot might be here for a normal fin, and this gets you way more close to where it would be if you were doing a keel fin. So it's sort of, and obviously as I say, with a cant built into the fin, you see there are actually two different cants on there. This is lent a bit more that way than this. So with the cant built into the fin rather than the box, I can swap from this to this, and the cant goes more suitable to this style of fin because the cant's built into the fin, not the box. So I can swap from this to this without ending up with, if you did that on an FCS board, we've usually got a 9-degree side fin, so you've got a keel fin that would be lent over a long way. So this is a couple of, I mean, there is a video of the difference between FCS and Futures, and they've both got the positives and negatives. I really wouldn't press one as being the ultimate and the other as not. They've both got their really strong points, and they've both got a couple of bits that let them down, but you know, they're both great systems. I use both of them, and yeah, you just got to understand which one you might want to achieve which result, basically. So yeah, that's the fins I would choose for this board. So we go through the concaves of the board, which I think it would be fairly legit to say that these are aggressive concaves. So you can probably see a bit there, but I'll run the straight edge down. So basically, from this is just back from the nose. So this has already got V starting in it way back here. You can probably see underneath the bar a bit easier that way, but you know, this is like the half, this is the midpoint of the board, and you can already see how much V is in there, and then as we go back, that V just increases. So I've actually cut this V into the shape when I was skinning the bottom of the blank, so I've actually cut it in quite aggressively and then refined it afterwards. So yeah, so you can see there's lots of V going on in there and double, and then I just mellow it out towards the back tips. But that basically allows the board to rock from side to side quite easily and have additional grip. I'll just put this through just onto one panel, so you can probably see you should be able to see the double concave on this panel on this side. Hopefully you can see that. I'll just keep moving it up and down, so hopefully you can see that there's a concave running through that V all the way through. So that's basically a V with a double inside it all the way through the board. And like I say, that just means the board's going to turn over pretty sharply to start with. And as I was saying, I put quite a lot into this detail of getting the rails and the hard edge very sharp on the board, and you can probably see through there. There's an extra resin build up there to get the exact edge that I want. And like you look down looking down the rails, we've also tried to keep this rail apex line and the thickness fairly refined, but chunky in the deck, but nice and rounded and refined down on this rail line here. So yeah, hopefully you can see that, but this board's come out extremely well and I'm really pleased with it. So that's my own personal quad fish that I made for myself. Hope you enjoyed the review. As I say, this one is 6.0, 21 7/8 and 2 7/8, and it's got a long V double running all the way through the bottom for concaves, and it's just a really good all-round board that you can ride in sort of 2 to 4 or 5 foot really, so like kind of waist to a bit overhead, and lots of fun. They don't always go as incredibly well on the backhand if you get a really flat one, but this one tried to counteract that with the V and the double concave, and still having a little bit of curve in the tail. So this one actually goes surprisingly well. I was really surprised how responsive it was, so I'm really happy with that. I think a lot of that's due to the concave and the still having some curve in the tail, because sometimes those tail pins are just super wide and it's like they're just really parallel, so they want to go in one direction, which is all extra speed, but there has to be a balance somewhere, I think. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you've enjoyed this one. This is number 1 of 4, so you'll have another 3 to come, so hopefully you enjoy watching that, and you don't mind me bleating on about my own shapes, but try and give you some information as well, which will help you with similar shapes or the riding style, or maybe help you find something that you want, something similar. There's plenty of really good models out there these days, so cheers for watching, catch you soon.